All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to What's Next. I'm your host, Matthew Quinn, and today we're going to be talking about making musicals. Some of you may recall last week we had John Coppola come on What's Next to just talk about directing musicals. And he shared his knowledge from working on New Musical Inc.'s new set of musicals that just came out. And we're very lucky to have the artistic director and executive director of New Musicals Inc. on the show today to talk about their process in quickly pivoting from live shows to online shows. So I'd like to start by introducing our guests. Welcome into the studio, Elise Dewsberry. How are you?
I'm good.
Elise has been involved in the development of new works for over 40 years as an actor, singer, and as a director, a dramaturg, and as a writer. While living in Toronto, Elise served as the assistant artistic director of the Muskoka Festival, the co-coordinator of the festival's annual music theater writers colony, and the associate dramaturg for the Canadian Stage Company. Elise spent many years touring Canada with 9 months, a one-woman musical which she commissioned from writers Carl Ritchie and Stephen Woodjets. Elise and Carl also co-wrote Anybody Home? Elise joined Academy for New Musical Theatre as an associate director in 2003. Joined founding artistic director John Sparks as co-artistic director in 2010 and became artistic director of New Musicals Inc. in 2013. Elise has also served as a member of the selection committee for the National Alliance of Musical Theater Annual Festival of New Works and is currently a Los Angeles Ovation Award voter. She is also the author and evaluator of the Book Lab and the Outlining Lab, offered online through, and if you can bring this up, Miles, writingmusicaltheater.com. So thank you so much, Elise, for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
All right. And now I'd like to introduce our next guest, Mr. Scott Guy, the executive director of New Musicals Inc. Hello, Mr. Guy.
Hello, Mr. Quinn.
Under Scott's tenure, NMI has developed over 100 musicals for producers from across the country and over 200 independent musicals developed by ANMT writers. Scott has produced several NMI music theater festivals and multiple seasons of concert readings and concerts. He has 6 Emmy nominations and over 100 produced television scripts for Warner Brothers, Fox, Disney, Discovery Channel, PBS. Upcoming recent projects include Disney, a musical version of Pirates of the Caribbean, Cadre Productions, that included Days of Our Lives, and Manson Girls for Hollywood Fringe 2018. If all goes according to plan, next year, Scott will have productions of The Fish Whisperer, Manson's Girls, and Der Stukenweit Lindia.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, good. Woo! As well as
Stucken White and Leader, based on the Stucken White book.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
Great title. As well as nearly 30 episodes on 3 different musical web series. Scott is currently the executive director of New Musicals Inc., where he supervises online writers, workshops, lyric labs, and script consultations. Very nice, Scott. Welcome into What's Next Studio.
Thank you very much. At least I have to say, your bio, listening to it like that, is intimidating. And like, oh man, could I collaborate with that? Very impressive.
You guys should know each other. You guys should work together. I think it's a good mix.
We tried it, and it's like oil and oil.
Just a lot of oil. Well, we'll see what happens after this. I'm sensing some magic there. So
We've been working together for 15 years, but we gave up sharing an office a number of years ago, and that's what's kept us together.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
The avoid an office, which right now is actually that kind of fits with your model. There, no office. So let me ask you, I normally start this show with presenting to the guests to tell us their pivot story, their story of we came into January, February 2020, high hopes, big plans. And then mid-March, we're told to close all of our spaces. Everything changes. And I'd like to ask both of you, in however way you kind of want to share this, talk about what your plans were coming into 2020 and then what changed.
I think there's two pivot points, actually, which, you can't pivot on 2 points. So
I don't know what that is. That's a line.
But a couple years ago, when, COVID was just a gleam in Murray's eye, we at New Musicals Inc. started thinking, oh boy, there's a shift happening that is including digital musicals and digital theater. We need to be ready for that. We need to start experimenting with what is the short form of musical theater? What is musical theater on your phone? What's a 5-minute, 6-minute, 12-minute, 11-minute musical? So prior to the pivot point to which you're referring, we had done a lot of failing, a lot of experimenting. Well, a lot of that's not going to work, or you need multiple camera angles in order to pull that off, or so on. So artistically, we were just fortuitously ready to pivot. Then I'll bet the pivot point to which you're referring, Elise and I we could probably speak in tandem. So why don't, Elise, you speak in tandem for us?
Yeah, well, we actually had an incredibly busy spring and summer planned. We always produce the 15-minute musicals that come out of our core curriculum program. They always launch in April, and that we have anywhere. This year we were going to have 6 15-minute musicals. There's always a different number of them, and those were set to be to start development in April and wind up with productions at the Broadwater Theatre in July. But in the meantime, we were also developing 2 full-length musicals that we were going to be actually 1 full-length musical, and then how many did we have? 8 40-minute musicals, yes. All of which we were in development over the course of the year. We've been developing them already since the fall, and we were intending to produce those at the Fringe Festival in June.
So add that up. I believe that math is 16 musicals or something.
I'll be honest with you. I was starting to panic already, thinking, how are we going to do this? Yeah. But we would have done it. But then I remember the day very well because it happened to have been my birthday. It was March 19th was the day that the initial shelter-in-place order for Los Angeles. 34, yes.
34. Happy birthday.
Several times over, yes. And that happened about 2 weeks before we launched our 15-minute musicals this year. So the plus about that was we were able to, when our writers started writing those musicals, we were able to say, okay, we already know the situation we're in, so let's figure out as we're writing these, what the heck are we going to do with them? It was a little tougher for the 8 shows and the 8 40-minute shows and the 1 full-length show that were planned for the Fringe, because they'd already been in development. They were already long since getting ready for their final drafts. And so it was tougher for them to pivot, and we had to come up with some different ways, and they all got treated a little bit differently.
But I remember it's the very day I figured without consulting, we then came up with not plan A or plan B, but plan A, plan B, plan C, and I think plan D, and they all had deadlines. If we reach this date on the calendar, and we can't get actors together, then plan A is no good. We got to go on to B. Right. And then if we reach here and we can't get actors, or if we know there's not going to be an audience. And so we, for a while there, we kept all 4 different scenarios into play, and then they started dropping out.
Yeah. That was the toughest. I mean, both Scott and I are A-type personalities, but I particularly like to plan things. And it was really tough to plan when we just didn't know whether we were going to, by June or July, be able to go ahead into the theater, or would we be able to get actors into our space and film there, or would we all have to stay at home? And that's what Scott means. We had a contingency for each one. We said, if this, then this, and we just sort of had to wait it out and figure out how it was all going to.
And you can imagine, Matt, the audition notice You know,
Right.
what are we auditioning
You
for?
say, yeah.
So there was a bit of administrative tension there, trying to figure out, do we launch the audition notice? Let's wait another day. Let's wait another day.
Yeah.
Let's wait another day. And at the end, I don't want to spoil the ending, but
Oh, go ahead.
where we're headed with this was, we actually wound up doing a little bit of, Plan A was no good, which is in front of a live audience, but we did some of B. We did a couple musicals under B, a couple musicals under C, and a couple musicals under D, by which I mean, we got a couple actors live in our space and shot it in our space as if it's real, as if we were in a theater. We number two, we shot some with actors, you know, in their own apartments, and had to adjust the scripts to, okay, why are you there? Well, it's because and Plan C was the scariest of all, and we have done one of these, which is to call the actors in one at a time. This afternoon, there's one actor in our green screen studio. Then tomorrow, the second actor comes in. Then Thursday, the third actor comes in, which means, you know, actor A has to say, okay, I'm looking right here, and I'm handing you the prop right here. And then actor B has to know, okay, I got to grab it from here, not from here, and you're not looking there or there or there. Times 5 actors, times 40 minutes, times musical, you know.
Lots and lots of editing went into that.
That one went out yesterday.
Just got released. Just got released this week, because it took the longest to edit. But we had, with all the shows that we were doing, we had to assess each individual show and say which way of approaching it would be best for this particular show.
So smart.
And some of them we were able to say, okay, this would be really easy to switch this as if the whole thing is happening in a Zoom meeting. So let's make those, and we grouped them together that way. So we actually wound up taking our 6 15-minute musicals and splitting them into 2 groups. 3 of them all lent themselves to becoming Zoomsicles. And so those are the ones that John Coppola would have been talking about last week. Those are the ones that he directed for us. And then the other 3, which really felt like they wouldn't benefit from that there wasn't really a way to revise them so that they would make sense. Scott took those on to direct them, and they rehearsed them all remotely, and then had the cast of 4 come into our space for one masked rehearsal.
One rehearsal.
And then the masks came off for one run through of each show with 3 cameras, and, you know, fingers crossed that we would get everything we needed.
Wow.
And that includes music rehearsals. There were, when we were rehearsing, and we'll talk a little bit later about latency, because it's a
thing.
It's a thing, and we have a clip to show you of our practicing. But what it meant was, when we were rehearsing in Zoom or online, we'd rehearse the dialogue, and then we'd come to the song, and the track would play, and everybody would have to hit mute.
Right.
Which meant our musical looked like this. Well, it's funny you should mention that. Dun, dun. And I, as director, had to take notes on that. And say, I can only assume that, you know, bar 37, you looked a little underpaid. So they all showed up.
He's building the excitement on this.
Yeah, it's all boy. We lost you there for a second.
We lost you for a second.
Okay. But you know, the rehearsal, the one rehearsal we had, was still with masks, and so even then, I'm hearing the music. I'm hearing them sing together in harmony for the first time.
Yeah.
So
man,
it was a scary. It was a brave moment for the actors to say, "Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
One take, guys. One take."
Wow.
Because I won't overexpose you to breathing shows.
And the shows that we actually started work on the shows that we'd been planning for Fringe a little bit ahead of that, because the 15-minute musicals were still being written. The one full length that we were going to do, The Bully Problem, The Bully Problem is the same writer, Michael Gordon Shapiro, who wrote Bully Problem last year. We were going to be producing Gideon and the Blundersnorp, his new piece, at the Fringe. And what we decided, originally we were going to just shift that to October, when Fringe was talking about shifting everything to October. And then when it became clear that wasn't going to happen either, Michael wound up doing a reading, an online reading of it that is actually going to be released in a couple of weeks on October 11th at 4:00 in the afternoon. That one's going to be streamed, a reading, because we still plan on producing that one next year. The 8 40-minute musicals that we were planning on producing, we wound up striking a bargain. 6 of those teams decided that they were going to do various forms of readings and head off in that direction. And a couple of them decided to just put it on hold and we'll do it next year. And then 2 of them, we decided to go forward with trying to figure out how to produce them this year. The first one that we started working on was United We Tweet, which I'm sure Johnny talked about last week.
Yes, he did.
Because that was the first, that was our first attempt to figure out how do we do this. And I'm sure Johnny talked about the fact that we sort of had to make it up as we went along. And every day we would say, well, how are we going to rehearse this scene? And what are we going to do with the music? And how are we going to record it? And we experimented with a lot of different things. I think we were all very happy with how it came out ultimately. It was a real learning process. And for Johnny, too, to figure out how do you choreograph on Zoom, and I wound up driving all over the city, taking people cameras and lighting, umbrella lights and everything so that everybody could have good things, good equipment to work with. And then the other one was Fly, 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 which was the piece that Scott was alluding to, where we made the decision to bring those actors, rehearse it all completely remotely, and then bring those actors into our space one at a time into our studio. So there was only ever one actor and a technician in the room at one time. But
part of it too, I know, but part of it too is what Elise was talking about. Not only what's best for the piece, but we as an organization wanted the experimentation. We were thinking, this is suddenly a brand new, art form, or at least platform. We put the art in platform, and so we wanted to do, different approaches, and frightened to death of that quintuple green screen shoot, and it turns out rightly so. That was an editing. That was maniacal.
And it was a show that was just riddled with props that had to be packed back and forth. So it couldn't have been tougher to try and figure out how to make that short. God. Megan Reese was the director for that piece. So Megan and her cast of 5 and were just, did a Herculean effort to make all of that work. It was rather amazing.
And we have to credit our editor too, Troy Barboza, who put together 5 actors, 5 cameras, 7 different, sequences, 2 or 3 different takes. That winds up being, I don't know what that math is. That's
that's hours.
Pieces. Yes, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, does that answer your question?
You add into that, interestingly, you can add into that mix that while we were in the process of setting up that filming and getting through those 5 actors, we were burglarized twice. Our premises in North Hollywood were burglarized twice, and we were cleaned out of all of our equipment.
Oh my
And so,
God.
literally, one of the actors was coming in to shoot, I think, that very day, and Troy arrived for work and called me on the phone and said, "Did you do something with the cameras? Where are the cameras?"
Oh.
Everything was gone, thousands of dollars of equipment, and we replaced it all. And 6 weeks later, they hit us again and took it all again. So that was fun.
7 weeks later, you exaggerate.
Well, that only multiplies what I have to say after hearing all that. First off, kudos for you guys to be so forward thinking even before the COVID.
Thank you.
I think there's a few, Brian Rasmussen over at Whitefire also had that kind of sense of this is important. I think a lot of people talked about it, few did it. So very wise on doing that. And if there's one of many things I'm picking up after all these episodes, the fun, the artistic element of this is playing around with all this tech. Nobody knows. It's the Wild West again. Like we had the internet Wild West like 10, 15 years ago. Now, probably maybe 20. Now we've got this new medium on all these platforms and tech. And a lot of this tech, as you know, has been around. I mean, it's not like...
We actually, that's another area where we were lucky because we actually started using Zoom. I looked it up online, Scott, to see when they actually started the company. They started the company in 2011, and I think we signed on. We might have been one of their first clients. So we've been working with Zoom for a long, long time. And our core curriculum, where we work with book writers, lyricists, and composers, we had opened that up to the world, and because people could use Zoom to take part in our class. So we've been doing it through Zoom for, I don't know, 6-7 years already, and including people from all over the world. So that wasn't a difficult shift for us at all. So our writers were already all over the world, literally all over the world. So. Yeah.
Well, and I do think that highlights one of the things that people are finding in general is this new connectivity with the world and artists from all over. Yeah. I also have to add, you must be pretty happy now that Zoom just came out 2 weeks ago with some new features, keeping boxes locked in and letting you move it around. So after 7 years, they're finally listening to some.
They were a little late because we'd already finished all of our filming when they started offering that stuff. And I have to stick up for Zoom. I would say that up until March of this year, I would say their support was spectacular. Yeah. They always got back to us quickly. They would often set up little tech sessions for us where someone who worked there would actually get on a Zoom call with us and walk us through things. They were fantastic. I think, starting in late March and early April, they just got so slammed with so many new customers.
I wonder what happened.
I will admit that exactly. I will admit that their support has, tanked. But I understand why, and I just want to stick up for them because their support used to be phenomenal.
That's awesome. And also I have to imagine after all, that's very cool doing that. I also have to imagine you've become kind of Zoom masters. Those questions are probably fewer. And I do want to see this work. I want you to talk about it, but you've already just mentioned, again, what I find really fun with this is playing with all the different models, playing with the tech, what works. Out of those three that you kind of mentioned, what was there one? I appreciate that you did for each piece, because I think there's a lot of logic there. But after that, would you feel like this is the way to do it?
I think it's good been in the script.
Okay.
Because I think there's two other ways that we have yet to do, and I think they're upcoming, and I think those are going to be more successful even than the others. Mm-hmm. One is live streaming. Yeah. Where we set up 3 or 4 or 5 cameras and live switch and not worry about scenery or green screen. It's just a black background or something neutral, so that the angles are not an issue.
Right.
I think that is going to have the feel of live that all this pre-tape and all the Zoom stuff doesn't.
It's tough. Yeah.
Well, and people have been doing that with plays already, obviously, but with musicals, it's just a whole different situation because of the latency. That's why we haven't been able to do it yet.
Well, and it's rare that you get that live. Certainly, that the Broadway HD has done it, but they tape it and they edit it. From time to time, a sitcom will do a special episode on TV that live, and there's an audience adrenaline.
Yes.
That's different. Do you feel you're in the same room with them? Almost. A little bit.
Energy. Yeah.
A portion of that. There's I'm about to talk about Soren a little bit. There's a couple hybrids that I'm really excited about trying. Let's see if I can set this up properly. Let's say there's 2 actors and 2 cameras. That'll make the illustration easy. One actor is against a black background. Mm-hmm. One actor is against a green screen, but they're in the same studio. So that you could transport the second actor to a different place, but they still can be live with each other.
Right.
You conceivably could do that with green screen as well, and just split the background behind.
Mm-hmm.
We're in artistic talks with the following really exciting thing. Have yet to pull it off. We're artistic colleagues with a prominent producer out of Denmark, who also produces in London. Again, a little bit difficult to describe, but here, I'll use this. Imagine this wall here is an LED screen.
Ah, yeah.
You know, Times Square or the London Bridge or whatever. And there's an equivalent LED screen in Denmark.
Yeah.
So when I look at this wall, I see the Danes.
Life size.
Yeah.
When they look at their wall,
they see us.
They see me.
Yep. It's like a green screen.
It was like a transparent green screen.
Yeah, super green screen. Yeah.
What does he call it? Theater Without Borders?
Soren Muller, that Scott is talking about, that's the gentleman's name. He calls it removing the geography.
Oh, I love that. That's one of the things funny with the show. I get all these nice little terms.
He's been talking about it for years. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. These ideas have been out there. The technology's been out there. Creative folks have been, I'm sure, playing with it. Now we've got a market for it, and we've got an audience that's willing to tune in for this. So I imagine, Scott, just your company and just you talking now, there is a long list of different formats and models you are going to be playing with.
Yeah. The number one issue is still going to be latency. Nobody's, as far as a lot of people claim to have cracked it, but I don't believe anyone actually has. And we've tried a handful of different things, and I keep hearing about new things, and there's a lot of things on the horizon, and a lot of people are working on it. I think it's going to be technically involved, whatever it takes, and what that makes it difficult, because that means usually that all of the participants involved have to have some kind of tech savvy. We did a test quite early on. I think we did it at the end, in the middle of April or the beginning of
May. It was about week 3.
We were working with a program called Listen To and Listen Receive, where we were able to send our information to each other through a browser, and then put it in, and then listen, and we could listen, and so that I could hear someone playing the piano somewhere else. And then we were trying to get a technician to be able to take everybody's feed and sync it up and then send it to Zoom.
Right. And the idea is that all 3 actors have their own independent streams.
Yeah.
Then the engineer receives out of sync.
Syncs them
and
up.
The engineer lines them up and
then sends it out.
We almost got there with that one, because
that makes sense. That actually makes sense.
Yeah, we were able to get to the point where we all sang individually, and then our technician had to sync it up, not live, and play it back for us. We can play you the little tape that we did.
Yeah, we got a little clip of that. Would you like to see that, Matt? The answer is
I do. You know I do. And actually, it's funny. Listen To was brought up on the last show. Somebody had kind of presented that. So let's see. Let's get that up there. All right, there we go. The audio latency test. You guys are so official. It's that Type A coming out right now.
17th. So we were in,
wow. First month. Yeah.
We were like,
all I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
Hang on.
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
I think you should do a whole show with just watching your reactions.
We were pretty excited, but as you see, it didn't happen live. He recorded it. Our technician was able to record it and sync it up and then play back the recording for us. So it did happen live that way, but we weren't able to hear it live. We had to wait for the playback. So it didn't quite.
He could have, but we had that technical issue of
and then
see the live playback.
I think one of the
Right,
reasons,
right.
I think one of the reasons we didn't pursue that any further was that you have no idea how much technical expertise each one of us had to be employing to do that. We had to download this one program. We each had to have a DAW, a DAW, which is a sound
digital audio workstation.
Yeah, and so
wow.
you had to set that up and figure out how to get listened to come into it, and figure out how to send your stuff through the browser and get it. It was too involved for each individual person, and we kept thinking, how are you going to ask 5, 6, 7, 8 actors all to do all of that?
Yeah.
So we sort of we stopped trying to make that one work and started looking for something that would be simpler. But
So, well, I said earlier, I appreciate the going for it and trying it all. I will toss out there a name I have heard, which is Streamweave.
Oh,
Streamweave is supposed to be this new one coming down the pipe, and basically, like what you guys are describing about syncing them together, there's going to be latency. I mean, until physics involves light speed transmission between things.
So the idea is
going up
can allow for the latency.
Exactly. And what they're saying is this will have a super algorithm, and we all love that word. That super algorithm that basically will do what the humans did, which is takes them all in, will balance them, set them at the right place, and then shoot it out.
Yeah.
So
the other one that I've heard of, I hadn't heard of that one. I'll check it out. Yeah. The other one that I heard of recently is called Jack Trip. And apparently some choir somewhere used it and has already accomplished it, and they're in the process of making the technique that they used a platform that people can use, and it's supposed to, so I've checked it out. You can't. I think again, it would take a lot of technical knowledge to do it right now, but they're trying to simplify it.
I saw some erudite analysis of okay, you're in New York. You're in Los Angeles. Light traveling at this speed takes whatever it is, 0.00019, and get back, blah, 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 blah. That adds up to whatever it was. It was, 200ths of a millisecond. And at about...
And you set that off 2 milliseconds before. No, sorry, go on. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. Thank you. I've also read that, and I've experienced that the human ear can hear things are out of sync if it's at about 150 milliseconds. We could put up with it. 200 milliseconds, you start going.
That does it. That's really fascinating.
And 250 milliseconds, you can't cope. And so that's at the speed of light going there and coming back. So
I mean, what do you do? That's it.
And
And you also know from watching it, the sound is far more important than the image. We'll give a little bit of image pixelation and still get it. If that sound is off and we're like, forget about it.
In particular, to say when you're singing, when you're talking,
yes.
I think what people don't realize is that same latency is happening right now while we're talking.
Yeah,
but we don't notice it because it just isn't as apparent when we're not trying to hit beats at exactly the same time.
Yes, but that is the big question. And again, reiterating, you're exploring it, and also what I think. You're bringing this up too. What I find very exciting about this time is the way we're all sharing this information. We've talked about, I think it was earlier today, Andrew Shemedicky, who was actually in our first show many months ago, has been out there sharing a lot of information. Program names are being shared.
I watched that show with Andrew on it, and I immediately contacted Andrew and I said, "Can I consult with you, please?" And he was wonderful, and I had a whole session with him where he talked to me because he helped me with OBS Ninja, which is really, really cool stuff.
And very cool.
Yeah, and using the OBS virtual camera plugin in order to send assets over to Zoom, all kinds of cool stuff.
All that stuff.
He was awesome. And I found him through your show.
Yay, I like that plug. Hear that, everyone? So much like all that they've done, the sharing you've done, we're now turning to you. So Elise and Scott, you have been doing a lot of this. I mean, you pivoted quick. You pivoted before the pivot. So
we pivoted apparently on April the 18th, the day after, when we had latency. What else we got?
right. Let's keep going. So I think you guys brought some clips. You brought some elements. I would love for you guys just to kind of share what you've done, what kind of worked, what didn't work, because until this latency problem gets resolved, which I think is going to be a battle, you guys are exploring the techniques that are working. I mean, the pieces I saw were wonderful. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I've got, let's see, I've got a clip ready to go here that is from one of the blue 15-minute musicals. This is the one where we were talking about how they rehearsed remotely and then came in for a masked rehearsal. And then we shot it in our own studio. We didn't use green screen. We just did it in black, but with 3 cameras shoot. So this is from...
This is the one that had the one rehearsal, the final rehearsal
with masks, yeah. So this is called A View from the Moon.
Be careful what you wish for, or else your every dream will disappear. In paradise, in paradise, in paradise.
That's the first time I heard the harmony.
Yeah, so we shot 3 shows that way with that same cast in each one of them. And then I have another clip that shows the other 3. The way we did the other 3 shows, the ones that Johnny did. This one's called A Perfect Wedding, and it was because, again, with the 50-minute musicals, we knew in advance what we were facing, and so they literally wrote a show that was about a woman whose daughter was getting married, and they were making the final plans, and they were literally on a Zoom call when they heard that there was a shelter-in-place order and everything fell apart, and they had to decide to have their wedding through Zoom, which they decided to do. And this is just the phenomenon.
That's great. I saw that one. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and they were lip syncing. The way we shot that one was we actually got a Zoom call, and everybody was in their own space. And I had driven all over the place, including all the way to Malibu, to loan out cameras and lights and whatnot. And we recorded the Zoom meeting, and so and I think with Zoom you can record each person individually, so that later somebody can sync them all up. We use Premiere. And when we got to the songs, I had the songs in a playlist, and when it was time for a song to start, I would play it from I was in the meeting as well, and they would lip sync. Now, what's interesting about that is when they would lip sync during the meeting, what we were all looking at in the meeting looked ludicrous because it wasn't sunk up, right?
Yeah,
so they're singing away, and they have and that, I'm sure Johnny talked about that, made it tough for him to direct and tough for him to choreograph because he could never see them doing it all at the same time. Right. But that's how we recorded it, and then we took all the footage out of Zoom and sunk it up in post.
So, in a sense, that to kind of the analogy you've been talking about, or the latency, that the editor became the algorithm. The editor basically brought in and lined it up, and you had the sound, and then spent the time to basically match mouth to which I could just imagine was like,
lots of fun. Lots of fun.
But the effect worked. Yeah. I mean, and let's talk about the 2. I mean, obviously, getting everybody in the same room and shooting it. It's not exactly Hamilton, which kind of relied on 4 different performances and super cameras, which I think had a lot of positive effect for this industry and people seeing, this could kind of be cool. So you got that flavor. And I have to imagine that, I mean, you've got safety risks. You obviously had to be aware of where people were facing.
It's tricky, and you have to have a cast that's willing. You know, when we were casting, we had to be very upfront with what we were planning and say, you need to be okay with this.
It was also literally 104 degrees that day,
right?
And we literally had to turn off the air conditioning,
right? Because of the sound,
the sound.
They weren't lip syncing; they were singing a track that was playing in the room.
And we're black. We're all black.
And we're black. Nice in a black room. Yeah. Well planned, you guys. Nice.
I have.
It's funny, Matt. I haven't heard from any of those actors.
Yeah, right.
I have a little clip that the writer of Fly, 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 the one that we did with people coming in separately, Megan Reese. It was the writer, Katie Brady, is the one who wrote the book, music, and lyrics, and she put together a little promo where she interviewed the actors to talk about what it was like to go through this process. And I think that's the next one I have queued up. Let's see if it's yes.
As an actor, there's always a certain amount of suspension of disbelief, but this was next level. We were imagining everything, the set, the props, our scene partners. It was all just in our heads.
We actually had to memorize about how tall the other actors in the scene with us were, so that when they put it together, it would look like we were looking them in the eye.
The hardest part for me was when I had to track another character's movement across the stage, because I just had to make it up.
Performing essentially alongside an imaginary cast.
I could only have one singer in the room at a time.
We managed to film a whole musical without ever actually rehearsing any part of the musical together in the same room.
We were singing in 3 or 4 or even 5-part harmonies and never even heard each other.
How many hours of editing? Okay, calculator. It's a lot of hours of editing. A lot.
It's really such a beautiful piece, though, and such a universal theme. Everyone will relate to one of these characters, and it's really touching.
It was a wild experience. Never done anything like it as an actor. Way to go, NMI, for pushing the boundaries for what's possible in quarantine.
I've got to say, first of all, that's so wonderful you made that, because that was so informative and such a great little piece of history of all this going on. I also got to say, your editor deserves like a few gold stars, drinks, whatever his poison is.
Yeah.
What we gave him as his reward, we gave him some time off.
Yeah.
You guys are saints.
I think he's really going to sleep for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He also was in the show. He played Griffin, so he was in the show. He was the the technician and the editor. So
that's how you hook him. You hook him with that role, right?
And just to follow up, I have a short clip just from the very finale of the show, because what you saw there was the green screen and some of the elements starting to come in.
So hold on. It looks like Matt's got a question.
Yeah, just before you play it, I just wanted one thing because that was my third point. That green screen picture we saw, was that them being flown in? They weren't in that room, or were they?
They were in the room, but separately.
So, all right. So basically what we saw was the composition of all of their individual shoots in that. Wow. I'm trying to look. I'm trying to see
so there would have been one shot of Troy doing his entire show as his character, and then another shot. And so in the editing, they had to put them into the same place.
It looked great.
It's actually about 6 more steps more complicated than that, because what they're standing in is it's a green floor, it's green walls, it's green sides, it's green cubes.
Yeah.
And we then added the cubes. We put wood grain on the cubes. Right. The back
floor and a brick wall. You'll see that in a second. You'll see all the
I
stuff
see.
we
We filled in. But I just wanted to equate, and for the audience too watching it, that was not them in the green room together.
No,
that
one at a
was
time.
them one at wow,
One at a time.
that's amazing. Okay, let's see it the next time.
Pretty wacky. Yeah. So this is just the very end of the show where you can see when all the elements came together.
We're ready.
No, we are not, Robin. That is a keep.
Okay. But that we can give away.
Hey, that note. I forgot it was from a poem. There's a quote of it here on the back.
The magic book. We walk to the edge of all the light you have and take that first step into the darkness of the unknown. You must believe that one of two things will happen. There will be something solid for you to stand upon, or you will be taught to fly.
All right. Well, a definite different aesthetic visually. It has a very cool feel. How did you do the audio? Was that the same way where it was mixed? How did that? Yeah.
We sang live to tracks in the room, each one separately.
They rehearsed it until they had the rhythm of the lines, the rhythm of the performance, and then they recorded eventually a version of the whole thing, and then the editor sliced it together and made 5 different tracks. So let's say I'm this actor, he made a track in which I'm not there, so that I hear everybody else except my lines.
Wow.
And that's what we fed into his earpiece. Then there was another track that looked like this.
Right.
This actor heard him, and so on and so on and so on. So there were 5 different tracks. It's like karaoke, basically. It was like
And they would have a
-1.
Bluetooth earbud to be able to hear the track.
And did wireless.
So I see how they did it like karaoke style, but then that output of the individual voice is what the editor used for the final sync of the film.
That's right. Yes, correct. They were hearing a pre-recorded version.
Right.
They captured a single actor.
Voice. Right.
Exactly. So I was in the studio for one actor's shooting. It was Troy, because he couldn't run the equipment. So I ran the equipment while he got on the other side of the COVID and the helmet.
We had a big plastic shield like a shower curtain around the tech table.
Oh my God. Right. Well, good. Yeah.
And so what it looked like in the room there was 40 minutes of silence where Troy is hearing. Then occasionally he'd say, "Sup, Dad?" And then there'd be silence. So we had 40 minutes times each of those takes.
Of each of those, just what a process. I mean, I'm glad you made that video showing the actors, because you get a little taste of what you're going through, and hearing about it now. Wow. I love that you played with all this.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
We're going to try a second one of those on a smaller and larger scale, a slightly longer show with a cast of 2 actors. But the premise of the show is that each of the actors are inhabited by different versions of themselves in the future.
Time travel.
They're time travel. So they're visiting this body, sort of vying for space. So in the theater, you see only two bodies on the stage while she's talking to like, "Get out of here." "Well, it's not your turn." "Yes, it is. I'm the doctor here." "When did you get a degree?" "I got a degree when you get that kind of thing. What we're going to try to do is to record that same scene I just did with one actor in 2 different costumes, in 3 different costumes, in 4 different costumes. So you'll see 6 bodies on the stage with 2 actors. But our green screen version, you'll see all 6 characters.
I see. So they'll each be pumped in via green screen, kind of along the lines of the second piece we saw, with the green screen importing the 6 different actors.
Right.
But this will be the same actor multiple times.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, keep it going. I mean, this is okay. So
something you couldn't do in the theater. So that's what's exciting about it.
It's very exciting.
In the theater.
There's a lot that I think like that. No, I think that's it. That's what's kind of cool. And
we've been talking a little bit about doing something similar. There was a show that Scott wrote that I starred in last summer at the Fringe Festival called Mother's Day. I played the woman who established Mother's Day, but who has gone crazy and now is inhabited by the ghost of her dead mother, but also President. Which president is it? I forgot. Wilson, President Wilson, and also John Valentine, the man who actually started FTD Floral Services, and of course, because the woman who invented Mother's Day doesn't want it to happen anymore. And so on stage last year, when I did it at the Fringe Festival, in 2019, I played all those characters, but I never did a costume change. It was all as if I was just being inhabited. The main character was being inhabited by the other 3. So we've talked about the possibility of shooting that in our studio, where I would actually have to then create a costume and a persona for those characters and shoot it 4 different times, once for each character.
Yeah,
and knit them all together.
I think that's great.
How hard could it be?
How simple. Get that Troy on it. He's got nothing better to do. He's rested long enough. Give him a call.
I wonder if we'll ever see him again.
Yeah, right. I bet. Well, he should know, and I'm sure you've let him know when he sees it is stupendous and very important what he's doing for artists to see how to make this work.
Sure.
And it also, I mean, the quinky dink of you, not coincidence, but the fact that you had the foresight to kind of see eventually this trend, and that your natural setup is with many musicals. And this allows, I think, some of this playing. Like you said, you had 8. So you were, or how many of the original? Well,
there were 6 15-minute musicals, 8 40-minute musicals, and 1 full-length musical that we had to figure out. And they all got different treatment as we went forward.
So the 6 right now, you have started release those. Those have all been made. You've used various versions. They're all available
on our website.
Go to nmi.org, and then the other side of the / go to online. NMI.org.
Or if you get to that first page, you'll find it too. But / online, and there's links to all 6 of them from there. Plus, Fly, 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 the one that we were just showing you, plus United We Tweet, the one that Johnny directed. And Johnny directed the 3 Blue musicals as well. So there's 6 short musicals and 2 40-minute musicals, all available from that page.
Next week to come.
And more to come.
And more to come.
Complicate it further. Next week's video stars a cast of 1, and the actress is deaf. We've been also experimenting with what are deaf musicals, and deaf musicals on video are a different beast, because the hearing can see the caption, and the deaf can see the caption, can actually see the signing.
Wow. So much fun. Was that something that came out uniquely because of what we're in now, or was that something you guys were working on as a natural part?
We started, we had an artistic relationship with Deaf West.
Okay.
About 4 or 5 years ago started that, but I saw the leap to video about 2 years ago, saying I think we could have musicals with deaf actors that make sense and are not just closed captioning.
Yeah. No,
I do have a clip, a very short clip from that one. I don't know if this is the one we're releasing. Is Island of the Dolls the one we're releasing?
That one's on Monday, yeah.
Let me see if I'm in the right note. Let me skip to the next one. Okay, here we go.
All the rest of her days alone, quite alone. Now, you and I know that the aunt could have prevented all of this from happening, but she had really loved that mechanical doll. The bitter wind that journey south seems just to linger on your mouth, and bears your kiss away. It lingers, lingers round your mouth, and bears your kiss away.
And you see, we're playing around with some rotoscoping, some cartooning.
I love that effect. In fact, a lot of people are talking about, again, just in terms of experimenting this time as a time to play with cartooning with this. And also something that people are bringing up is accessibility and the evening playing field that this movement is kind of representing. And I think you've hit it. I know it didn't come straight from this, but it accentuates that during this time, the importance of accessibility and offering that. I think excellent. I love the feel and look of that piece too.
It's from a series called Tales from the Darkening Wood that has several of them, and we're going to be shooting more of them. And the plus about that one is it doesn't matter how hot it is, we can crank the air conditioning up as much as we want while we're shooting those.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's the season plan is, shoot the death musicals in summer and everybody else,
work around the cool time. I bet you are learning a lot from these last few months of scheduling. Sure. Your type A personalities are getting a good workout to bring this back. So in regards of that, the Fringe, as you said, you were going to have that in June. You're originally going to do the 15 minutes in July. So you subsequently kind of presented those. You've got those shows up. 2 of the 8 plays have been made into online shows that are also up and available. And then I'm a big Michael Shapiro fan, and I've been following, anticipating his release in October of his next piece, which will kind of give a taste of it. It's not the fully realized like you've been doing with the others.
It's a reading/workshop, a very high quality one. But still, it's amazing what they managed to accomplish with everybody in their own homes. Yeah, but they still have they have bows and arrows and all kinds of stuff going on.
Well, I bet. Well, I think again, this is the time for the artist to be clever and people to really play with it. And for you, I'm already hearing. I mean, Scott's got 10 other ideas of filming, and Troy doesn't know about any of them yet, which is probably an advantage. What are your kind of immediate? What's kind of looking at now? Do you have anything that you are looking at that you can talk about?
Well, we're shooting a longer film with 3 deaf actors. My next technical sequence of musical stuff is to work with facial motion capture. There's like avatar software that will follow the motions of the face and put it on top of 3D modeling. What that will allow us to do is to work with actors who are less mobile. We can work with actors with disabilities who no longer can stand or don't have use of their arms anymore, but have use of their face, can still act. Yeah,
that's amazing. More accessibility.
Yeah, so that's those scripts. I don't know, 4 or 5 of those scripts are done. We're going to have to figure out. We're experimenting with this motion capture. It's a little problematic. There's the one we just did. Looks pretty good, but the character jaw tends to show right down here. I'm looking at branches around here. Thurston Hall.
Right. Well, for the right script, it may be perfect.
We're also, I know we're down to 4 seconds left, but this is the beginning of our new writers season. They're not new writers, they're new to us.
Right. So we start our season this weekend.
This weekend.
This weekend, yeah. So this is a blatant plug for
if you want in, you got to get in quick because we start on Saturday.
We start on Saturday, but it's an audition process. Yeah, go to nmi.org and look for the core curriculum, CORE.
It'll say submissions are being accepted.
Yeah. And this is all online. Don't knock on our door. We're not answering the door. But what the process is, in September, we match you with a collaborator. You go away and do a thing, and then come back in October, get feedback, and at that point you can decide, I love these guys, I want more, or it's not a good match, and vice versa. So this is a
And then if you stay, you do the same sort of thing month after month until April, when we assign the next round of 15-minute musicals and produce them, hopefully at a theater in LA in July.
Thinking hard. Yes.
So here's the Blake commercial watching. I'm going to make eye contact with everybody watching. So if you're interested in having us produce your 15-minute musical, either online or in a theater, go to nmi.org. Thank you. Go to nmi.org and see online on Saturday and audition for us and come join us. There you go.
All right. Nice. All right. I thought I'd give you a little more plug. Well, I want to make sure, actually, we had a few other websites, so we got to get those. Scott, we've got scottguy.biz. So for if you want to contact Scott, please go there. All of this will be in our YouTube description after the show. So if you miss it now, and writing musical theater, is that for both of you? Is that kind of a connection?
Yes, that website is online craft labs. So there's a separate lab for book writers, one for lyricists, one for composers, and it's online education. So you watch a video, you take an online test, you do some exercises, and then you submit an assignment that gets live feedback from the evaluator. And there are a number of units in each one. People who take our core curriculum are required to take those, but it's available for anybody who wants to take them. And a great way to sort of add some tools to your toolkit at your own speed, because you can do it from home whenever you want and however you want to do it. That's what's at writemusicaltheater.com.
Well,
I'm the evaluator for the book lab and the outlining labs.
I see.
And Scott did all the videos and designed the lyric labs and the advanced lyric lab. And we also have composer labs. Lots going on there.
I love it. I love the action going on, all this stuff. And one quick question before I kind of wrap this up. When theaters do open, you brought this up, Elise. By July, let's say we're back, even physically distant, something's going on. Are you going to keep doing these online musicals? You wanted to pivot before. Is this something that is just going to be an adjunct to everything you do live?
Yeah. Absolutely. We were already doing it before. There's no reason not to continue. We won't do it instead of live theater, but it's always going to be a component.
Yep.
For sure.
Well, I've got to say, from the live theater component, I have always been impressed with the musicals that have come out of NMI. It's been wonderful since you've become so involved with the Fringe. We get this great exposure to all these great works. People like Michael Shapiro and other artists that you've really trained and highlighted and really kind of gave a platform to. And I've got just a general thank you, not only for that, but thank you during these times to being such advocates of creating art. A lot of people kind of like, oh, no, it's not theater. We're not doing this. We're just wake me up when the venue's open. And there's a small and mighty group that really pioneered what's going on now.
Yeah.
So
it's important. It's important. You got to keep getting the work out there whenever you can. And actually, the internet makes it so much more accessible, and you get so much more exposure. That's why we've always been interested in it.
Yes.
Not as a replacement for theater, but it really helps writers get their work out there, get it exposed, get it out to the world.
I'm hearing press coverage, everything. Yeah, Guy, Scott.
But it's also it's a different art form too. The storytelling is a little bit different.
Yes.
The eye contact is different. The blocking is different. The intimacy is different. The shape of the story is different. I'm finding in general that narrative storytelling is a better translation for a 5 to 10 minute musical than a musical that requires dancing and walking,
You bring up a point. I know we could keep going on, so I'll try to be brief with this. It's interesting that you brought up that you were able, and Johnny mentioned this too, you were able to pivot on some of the topic, like the wedding became an online way. We get that concept as people are really having them. And that there were certain Zoom forums that we're used to. And something I'm going to have in an upcoming episode is now there's this dawn of people have seen all these forums and are now writing for this forum.
Yeah.
And that I think is the next generation that's going to be coming out.
And that's how we've got a new series coming up in January, I think, so when we start releasing. The series is called The Last of Its Kind. The theme is, the final thing. Some are happy, some are not happy. The final payment on a mortgage, we own the house. The final night before you go off to war, not so happy, etc. they're scripted. They are written for, their music goals in the sense of 2 or 3 characters in a scene, as opposed to
yes,
speaking to the camera.
Yeah, I see. I see.
And so they're a little more costumed. There's one that's Admiral Scott at the South Pole writing the last letter to his wife. And so it's a musical in that he's singing, but there's no singing, there's no dancing. So and again that series is also playing with the form. Some are goofy in a cartoon set, some are very, very serious. There's one that was a visual experiment that nearly broke us because it was so hard to figure out. It was a clown, a circus clown, an aging circus clown who snapped something in his back and no longer get inside the clown car. And so it's his last taking off of his nose, and he says, I can't do it. I am my nose. I am my nose. What was tricky about it, and it's serious. It's not as goofy as a clown taking off his nose.
Right.
But what was tricky about it is we shot it behind the actor so that we could see him looking in the mirror.
Oh, that's cool.
See his reflection in the mirror.
Yeah, that's a cool effect.
We had 2 cameras pointing at the mirror, but we had to figure out how to angle it so you didn't see the camera.
That involved Troy again. Scott and Troy spent hours in the main hall trying every different camera angle they could come up with to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
NMI starring Troy. I think maybe it's heading there.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you, Troy. So I what I just love, and again, we could keep going. So much to play with, so much experimenting. It's beautiful that you're doing in musicals. I'm a huge musical fan, and so seeing this experimentation in that art form is wonderful. Again, thank you both. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to share with us in January in these coming months, and then really hoping to see you live at the Hollywood Fringe next year. So we can really celebrate everything you do.
From your lips.
Yes, exactly.
I'm putting them in my phone. What is it?
Yeah, I would not put anything in any phone. I think we have a kind of wait up, but we've got some stuff to do. You guys definitely have a list to do. So I think that's really exciting. Thank you so much for joining us. Audio. Oh, and we actually had a call. My pleasure. And another thank you from Michael Gordon Shapiro, who is out there. The man, the myth, the legend. Thank you for watching, Michael.
The man, the blunder snore.
Yes, the blunder snore.
Sunday, October 11th, 4 p.m.
I love the plugs. So that's our last show for this week. What a great way to end. Next week, I'm very excited. We've got 2 shows. One, we have the artistic director and set designer from the Alley Theater in Houston, Lord Theater, who have some pretty impressive plans of how to open up when it is safe to do so. And so the set designer and Rob Melrose, the artistic director, are going to talk about that. And then we've got a special show called Awkward Conversations. The awkward conversations, from contract talks to money to race relations, all of this is awkward, but they're important. They're conversations we need to have. So I'm very excited to be joined by Joshua Silverstein and Blair Russell, who is one of the co-producers of the Slay Play, who I actually met through an NMI panel. What a circular motion now.
We didn't even talk about our online conference we had this year that you were part of and Blair was part of, and lots of people from all over the country.
Oh, it was great. Utilizing Zoom. I think it was Zoom. Once again, Zoom to the wonder. So those have always been. I've been an NMI fan for a while. Always enjoy being on the panels. I always meet someone new and exciting. And Blair was this year's winner. Yeah. I don't know if he feels that way, but I do feel a winner. So again, thank you for that. Michael Shapiro said he'll be there to whatever I had just mentioned being there. Oh, for the show, of course. What am I talking about? But again, Scott, Elise, Michael, you out there too. Thank you for keeping art alive and working this and experimenting. It was a lot of fun talking to you about all this.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks for what you're doing. Keep it up.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Also, big thanks to Miles and David Svengali. You keep this show rolling. Miles Berman, if you could please play the credits, and we'll see you all next week. See you, everyone.